Each team will be sent a spreadsheet like this one. They will need to plug in their athletes' names as well as their ages and their weights in the final column. The first 10 entries your athletes need to fit into the given weight categories. So if, for example, we wanted to put Rylan in here, but Rylan only weighed 111 pounds, that is not between 120 and 150. Therefore, it would turn red. That would be an invalid entry. You'd have to choose a different athlete. Fortunately, he does weigh more. Likewise, the last category is just any athlete over 135 pounds. 135 pounds, so let's say Jonas weighs 170. That would fit that category. That would be great. The final 10 categories can be athletes of any weight. So Isaiah here, let's say he was only 30 pounds. That would be just fine. He could also be a 200-pound athlete. That's not going to turn red. These can be athletes of any weight. After you've sent in your rosters, it'll be added to a spreadsheet like this one. We will meet before the event and discuss matchups. How that will work is we'll flip a coin for which is Team A and Team B. Team A will have first pick for the matchup, and let's just say that Team A would really like Sammy Stud to wrestle, so they're going to go ahead and present Sammy Stud first. What I would do is I would plug in his weight up here, and I will be the one controlling this in the meeting with the coaches. But coach from Team A would suggest that Sammy Stud be presented. I'd plug his credentials in right over here, and we'd look over at the BGC lineup, and the BGC coaches would have multiple options. They'd have multiple options because there are multiple wrestlers on the BGC roster that meet all three criteria here. So criteria number one is a percentage based on wrestler A, from example A, their weight divided by the weight from the BGC wrestler, and then the opposite, the BGC wrestler divided by 88 pounds down here. So, and then the last one is just an age difference. So these will turn green if it is between -1 and 1, so meaning a 1-year difference. Go all the way down to 90% and up to 110%. So that would be a 10% weight difference for both athletes. So in this case, we have Caleb, Easton, both meet those criteria, and so does Jackson down here. Now the BGC can choose anybody they want. Just because Sammy Stud was entered in the 70 to 90 pound weight class does not mean that Caleb has to be the one to wrestle him. In fact, in this case, maybe the BGC would in fact choose Easton. So that would be our first matchup. Team A had their pick, and then go to Team B, and let's say that it so happens that they want to wrestle the first guy that's on their roster up here. They really would like to get Lincoln a match. So Lincoln's credentials would be plugged into the spreadsheet. He is a 6-year-old who is 42 pounds, and in this case, example Team A would not have those choices. There is only one possibility, and given that this Joe Soso was put on the roster, it's assumed that he can wrestle anybody on the BGC's roster that meets the 3 criteria. So example Team A would have no choice but to wrestle Joe Soso against Lincoln. Here's a pick. Let's say that Team A would really like to get Elliot Excellent into their lineup here. So I would plug Elliot Excellent's credentials in. He's a 149-pound, 13-year-old. And what we have is a little bit of a problem for Team A. So Elliot Excellent here is somewhat close in weight to Jonas. He's within the age criteria, but when you take Jonas's weight and divide it by Elliot's weight, you end up getting a value that is greater than a 10% difference. It's an 11% difference. Now, the reason why we have these yellow, or rather orange, indicators here. This is indicating a variance of 2 years if it's showing up in the age column, or anything that is 10 to 15% of a weight difference. So I think those things could be tolerated if the coaches agreed upon them, but that should be done more towards the end of the lineup here. We're going to try to get all of the matchups that are automatically entered, meaning all 3 criteria are met before we start making some of these compromises. So this being the 3rd match and plenty of other viable options out there, Team A would be forced to pick somebody else. So they might pick Mr. Talented up here. He is a 90-pound, 10-year-old, and of course there were going to be multiple options, 2 options left. So it looks like Easton meets all criteria, but Easton was already selected for the first match, so he's out. So it would be the BGC's choice between Caleb and Jackson. Reached kind of the end of the line, and these 2 teams have matched up nicely. So far we have gotten 14 matches to fit within the 1 year or 10% criteria, and what we're left with are some potential exceptions. Now, neither team has to agree to any of these, but in this case there are several where they're fairly close. So if we just went down, let's say it was the BGC's choice, they have Sage not getting a match yet, so Sage's criteria could be plugged in. He is a 7-year-old who's 55 pounds. Average Joe can't wrestle. He is already in the lineup. But then we have John Dew down here, who is a little bit heavier and also 2 years older. BGC and example team A would have to agree to that. There's probably a better one in here. Let's see if that Jonas character here, if we've plugged in Jonas's, he's 12 years old, he's 165 pounds. Okay, we have 2 that are pretty good. We have Elliot Excellent here, who is giving up quite a bit of weight, but 11%. And then we also have weight-wise, this John Bow character, who is really close in weight, just the 2-year difference. If the coaches agreed upon it, there could be a matchup there for match number 15. When the matches have all been decided and coaches have, either accepted or rejected some of these, you would take a look at all of the names that were not scratched off, rather. These would be kids that did not get matches on either team during the duel, and we could set up exhibition matches at the end. So say Sage here couldn't wrestle this 8-year-old who was pretty close to his weight because I believe Cam was already wrestling him. Well, after the duel is concluded, we can wrestle those 2 as an exhibition match just to make sure we're getting kids matches.